at best, the city owns the right of way in fee simple outright. It's somewhere between the two.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere between the two, and I wouldn't want to totally commit at this time. It's a very short window of diligence that I've had, but by all indications, it is just a right of way right now, not a fee simple interest.
Mayor Robertson, may I?
Please, Mr. Viking.
Yes. So one thing I think that the city needs to be aware of is that that access road has been maintained. And it has been maintained going on BLM and in the right of way. And so,
Maintained by who? The railroad?
yes. So there are some egress and ingress that has gone on since that has been used by the public a lot. The agency never has worried about any enforcement type action on that road, but I think that this council does need to be aware that technically speaking, any maintenance that's going on where it goes back into BLM and into the right of way and back into BLM is not part of that right. So any agreement that is potentially made between the parties, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that any of that road that's not in that right of way, I would say probably should not be part of your agreement.
Thank you.
Another question for BJ, if I could, please.
Sure.
You know, this oversight's led to this big issue right here, you know. So, you know, all of a sudden skeletons are coming out of the closets about a roadway, right away, city right away. What is the cost you would project by delaying borehole 1 till next year you do borehole 3? Just, I know you're probably paying rent on that machine out there.
Yeah,
It's
well,
sitting there for the next 10 days.
thank you. And Mr. Bassett mentioned that he wasn't notified until October 7th, I think, which is probably accurate. We didn't get the permit until October 4th, and that was a Friday, Monday morning, so it was a couple of days, but we got that. Since we were told not to cross the railroad, as was Gabe showed, we put that second crew on hold, and they're in the rig is sitting in the wreck yard right now. It's costing us about $20,000 a day for them to be on standby. So over the last 10 days, or 7 days, it's been about $150,000 that we're incurring in cost. They had to mobilize the equipment from Spokane, Washington, to be able to bring that special equipment down here. So that we currently have 3 crews on site here in Ely, that 2 crews that are working 12 hours a day on borehole 2, and 1 crew that's on standby for the second rig to do it. And that includes both the crews for Crux, the actual operators of the drill, and then crews for GEI, who are the geologists who are doing the data logging from the core samples that are pulled. So we have, technically 2 companies here. This round of effort is, I forget the exact dollar amount, but for this mobilization was about $1.2 million. So to remob next year, I mean, again, the borehole 1 is a really critical component because it's on that fault line. We will have to mobilize again next year. That we've
To
obviously.
do borehole 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we still need to work on access, and I think Mr. Uvalde wanted to talk because we don't have access to go through his property. We do have a license to do non-invasive cultural work, which HDR did through his property, but we don't to do the borehole work, and so, we can't obviously access it that way right now, and that's something we need to work through.
This kind of money on this oversight, who are you answering to? And they're saying, hey, how's the borehole 1 doing? I mean, somebody has to be a little upset about, because all of a sudden, this comes up tonight, there's an open oversight, BLM admits there's lack of due diligence. I'd hate to be in your shoes if you're spending $20,000 a day and not doing that.
Well, the rest of the money we're spending, we are getting information, so.
Probably public comment for him, if his property doesn't directly intersect this borehole issue.
Luigi,
Yes, sir.
in reference to,
Wait, please, that's.
this is the attorney Gage Zobel on behalf of Northwest Energies, in respect to what Council Representative Stanko, he's Representative Council Stanko for the railroad mentioned, I think it's a miscite in what's listed in the council agenda tonight. It's not an easement, it's a license agreement that was put together by your attorney. Leo Kuhn put together, my understanding is a license agreement. It is not an easement, and it is a limited license. So I think in many ways, it represents what Council Stanko said that he might be amenable to as he counsels the railroad. I think it should be a license agreement that is freely revocable within 10 days.
The agreement does say short-term license agreement.
So not an easement. I think that's what Stanko, I should say, Council Stanko wanted, as he mentioned. I think that's what we've actually wanted to put together.
The agenda says easement agreement.
Yeah, and it's not an easement, it's a license agreement. There's not gonna be real property rights granted to us. It's a license, it's freely revocable, it goes back out. And I think, and I might be out of turn, and Luigi can correct me, but if that is what the council wants, and that would make the railroad happy, I think we're amenable to being able to work on it overnight if I have to make sure he has a chance to look at it as their attorney and can approve it, if that will help us move forward. We can make sure that is approved by him as an attorney.
Thank you.
But, Mr. Mayor, now I'm really getting, I think we have an issue. The agenda does not match the agreement. The public has not seen this document. Are we getting ourselves into, agree with Mr. Chachas, a big open meeting law violation?
Interesting afternoon when those agreements kind of happen, Jim.
So that's a question I have.
Let's ask the attorney. Attorney Cohen, what's your guidance on that?
I mean, it caused me some pause, the language for the agenda item. Are you having a hard time hearing me?
Go ahead.
The language for the agenda item was slightly inaccurate. That was an oversight on my part, and with the short notice that we had to post, it was posted before anything could be changed on that. And so, I mean, I sought opinion from other counsel. I don't necessarily know if there's a hard set OML violation, but it's you know, the license agreement was provided to the council this evening, and that's the correct language for the item and what's going forward today.
The language that's on the agreement that got sent out.
That's correct.
Is there an issue with that only being received, you know, an hour or so before the meeting or less?
I mean, I want to say no, you know, but it does sort of straddle the line there. I don't necessarily think we're in blatant violation of OML. There's some prior opinions from the AG's office that sort of touched base on this, but, you know, it's a matter of interpretation and opinion.
Leo, this is Ed. I think, you know, I'm always a little concerned about getting something like this late in the game. But I do believe the open meeting law says that any information that's provided to the council must be provided to the public at the same time, whether it's when the agenda come out or if it's 10 minutes before the meeting. I don't think that you know, we have any violation about the timeline of actually getting it, providing it was passed to the public at the same time or available for the public at the same time. My concern is still going back to, even if we decide we want to try to work with this, the easement agreement against the license agreement seems like it's kind of a broad, doesn't match. And it's supposed to be very concise on your agenda. I can't remember all how it all words, but whatever. And today is what, Wednesday?
Today is Wednesday the 20th.
And even if we did reschedule this, that would only give this company, we couldn't have a meeting until Monday, right?
Tuesday.
Would be Tuesday?
3 days to post.
We post tomorrow, which is Thursday. So it's Friday, Monday, Tuesday.
Friday, Monday, yeah. What would that do to your guys' timeline?
see.
I would tend to agree with our attorney that I don't think the wording between the agenda and the top of this agreement is a huge issue. Yeah, I
I mean, the reason why, I guess it's not an easement in the legal sense of the word, but it is a right to use a roadway. And so that's where I don't necessarily think it's a blatant violation of OML. And I think, you know, with the map that was provided with the agenda item showing the road, I don't necessarily believe we're in violation of OML.
Leo, this is Jim, let me ask this question. If some person was to file an possible open meeting law violation, does it hold up everything we're talking about right now until it's figured out? Because that could last forever. And, that's just another concern there. I got my opinion, I'll say later, Juice.
Yeah.
City Attorney, Kahoot, Council, if I may make a suggestion, Chris Stanko, on behalf of the Foundation Council.
Go ahead, Chris.
One of the first issues I had with this was the development agreement between the city and the foundation. That's why you'll see there in the draft license agreement that as a condition precedent to entering into this license agreement, the foundation would have to approve it. Per the joint development agreement, which covers the historical line, including the High Line portion, the foundation is supposed to control the joint assets. Now, they're not supposed to encumber, sell, convey, gift, or otherwise transfer any joint assets without first obtaining the prior approval of the city. There's a question whether or not short-term license of this nature would fall within that language where, the development agreement structure is that neither party is supposed to encumber, sell, convey, gift, or otherwise transfer any joint asset, which I interpret this right-of-way legal right to deed without the prior approval of the other. However, the foundation is also has the exclusive right to operate the historic line per the development agreement. And so there is a potential interpretation that would lend itself to the city not voting on this for a potential OML violation. I have no opinion on that whatsoever. I'm not engaged to render one, and the foundation being able to execute the license agreement as an accommodation to our club. And I think that the record should state that we have been running fast and hard as soon as we heard about this. We are neutral, but I know that the county commission has been a great ally and friend to the foundation, and we want to be neutral, but we've been trying to accommodate a potential request consistent with our neutral position. And so we've been working sort of around the clock to figure this out in very short notice that we had. But that might be a solution that the foundation could vote to, within the development agreement. I think it's a proper interpretation that the foundation itself could potentially grant this short-term license. They could not grant an easement. But that's a little vague within the development agreement, and if the city were to object and believe that the specific provision of the development agreement that I am referencing would necessitate city prior approval, then I would yield to the city's position on that. But that could be, and of course, this is all up to my client as well. I have no authority whatsoever to make these decisions on behalf of my client, but I'm just raising it as a potential possibility.
Thank you, Chris. Leo, do you have a thought on that, on who could approve this?
My understanding was, based under the development agreement, that both the city and the foundation, as joint parties, should probably approve the agreement.
So if the council decides to approve something here today, and I don't see the foundation as a signatory on the agreement here though, but you're saying a draft would have to be approved with that and then sent to the railroad board for approval, is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, based on the reading of the development agreement in, section 3, Roman 4, I think that's what Chris is signing to, Mr. Stanko. And I would agree, yeah.
Now that that's all as clear as when we've talked about this now for an hour and 15 minutes. Does the council have further questions for anybody in here in the room that they'd like to hear from? Is there a motion from the council on what they'd like to have done?
I would like to table this until we have more information and everybody has their ducks in a row. I don't feel like that's happening right now.
Do you have a motion on the floor? Is there a second for tabling? If not, motion tonight for lack of second. I will entertain another motion. Is there any second for that?
Doesn't the item fail if there's no motion?
They can make a motion. If the motion fails, you can make another motion. If nobody makes another motion, it does die for lack of motion. So, we do have a motion on the table. If there's no second, that motion will die, and I can entertain a second, another motion.
So, big question, your motion to table was to bring it back with better detail, hopefully?
With better detail from all sides, yes. Thank you for that.
Is that to have another emergency meeting on Tuesday next week?
Well, we would have to, because that's the only way we're gonna get the information, and I still also thoroughly agree that public should be able to have access to the same documentation we have.
Just for, well, and I want to be clear that the clerk did confirm that the public had access to the information at the same time that the council did, so that is in compliance with the OML as we understand it. If other information, just so that I can be clear, the other information you'd like to have is whether or not we do actually own the property, or if it's just a right of way. Is that something that could be resolved in a matter of 3 business days?
That plus the wording thing, let's get the wording thing. I agree with what Jerry Lynn is saying. It's not gonna give these guys no time to do nothing, you know. I'm all to understand the feasibility thing. But I do not want to go through an open meeting violation, go around. We think the word license is the same as a lease, you know. And there's just too many, and I just really, if we table it, it's not gonna give Parkless Energy time to do nothing.
If we approve something Tuesday afternoon, does that give you time to do that?
No. You can thank him now for our timing here.
I think sage grouse for a lot of things in my line of work. Mark, is that, can we find the answers to Councilman Terry Lynn Williams' questions, Williams Harper's questions before Tuesday, or is that asking for mountains to move?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's the short version.
I personally don't know that we could have that resolved by next Tuesday. That congressional issue was, let's see, when was that?
2005.
2005, and we're still having questions about it as that gets corrected over the years.
And that's part of the issue. We have the interim conveyance, we don't have the final conveyance. The other thing is,
We still don't have final conveyance.
we don't have the final conveyance from 2005. And the issue is, I've never seen the actual survey supporting the interim conveyance. And we have requested that from the BLM. Do you have the survey?
So that has not been cadastral surveyed, and so what that means is that's why it was issued as an interim conveyance pending that final survey.
So the survey hasn't been done.
The survey has not been done, and those usually take decades.
That's good.
Can I speak just for a second?
Commissioner Howe?
You've listened to
Richard Howe, I'm on the White Pine County Commission, but you listen to your attorney, Mr. Stanko, and also Leo, and what we have here, because of the cost that is being incurred by R Plus Energy each day, that if you put into a simple agreement to allow them the next 7 days, and you have that agreement as far as you can shut it down within the 7, we're on such a short time, and the cost of this project to the developer at over $1 million is almost something you can look around to allow them in 7 days to go ahead and get their vehicles up there, do the bores, because on October 31st, 10 days, they have to shut down. There's no other way around it until April. But at the cost of bringing that equipment from Washington to here, I'm just trying to use a little common sense here. Mr. Stanko has told you that it would be legal to go ahead and make an agreement to allow them to go through and operate for the next 6 to 7 days. Even if you waited for the table till Tuesday, there's no way it can be done. That the cost of being incurred by a future developer, by anybody, at that amount of money, is almost to the point of ridiculous. But I think Mr. Stanko's given you some guidance, and good guidance, and Leo has agreed that maybe you can come up with a short-term, you can vote tonight on the short-term lines, allowing them to go ahead and access the road, and then you're gonna have 6 months to find all this information out. But I think because of the cost, and it's a very hard decision, and I'm just speaking as, you know, the commission's 100% behind, because I think that utilizing common sense and allowing them the 4 or 5 days to go up that hill and finish their boring on the hole, they gotta shut it down no matter what in 10 days. By the time you have a special meeting, they're out another probably $750,000 or $1 million. And is that worth it? I mean, you're not violating open meeting law, your attorney's giving you counsel, so that's just something that I would like, kind of like to put out there on the table so you guys can, before you vote, can maybe absorb that and make a decision based on economics and based on what's right and what's wrong. I don't think it's affecting anybody as far as who's using the road and how often they're on it. You have an agreement that you can go after R Plus if they destroy your road, so that's just my comment. And thank you for letting me say that.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the motion to table died for lack of a second. Attorney Cahoon, do you have any other guidance you'd like to offer there on how to proceed and keep us out of open meeting law problems?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't. I think everything's been addressed. I think the material was provided to the public. The only main issues are the discrepancy in the actual item. But I don't think that's such a severe issue to the extent that it will render an open meeting violation.
Do you feel proceeding is a defensible course of action?
I do.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
Yeah.
With that, and considering the facts that postponing this till Tuesday, the options are do it tonight or postpone till next spring. Postponing till Tuesday doesn't buy anybody any time. So those are the two options on the table. So that being the case, is there another motion the council would like to entertain? If not, the item will die for lack of a motion. Last call, anybody? Okay, item dies for lack of motion. We will move on to item 4, public comment. Mr. Uvalde, if you're still on the line, we can take comment from you now. If not, we'll entertain any public comment. Please.
The record against Donovan. One of the things, and I agree with what's been said here tonight, and in Justin Beelan's defense, how the process works, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, but R Plus Energy hires the third-party contractor, HDR, is who did the environmental assessment. And I think, if anybody should be mad, R Plus Energy should be mad at HDR, because they definitely fell down. They did not contact affected property owners. They did not contact grazers. They didn't have a road agreement to use Duck Creek Road, they didn't have a railroad right-of-way agreement. And to use the excuse that they didn't know, they have access to the assessor's website the same way I did. That's how I got my information and where I pulled the documents from. So I feel bad, I do, I am absolutely pro development and business. But there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way to do things. And I don't think it's private property owner's problem or the city or the railroad or anyone else to have to absorb cost or liability without having proper documents in place. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Pardon me?
I agree with you, public comment. Jim Laura, talking on behalf of the private citizen, 805 Avenue I. This project is huge. I mean, a lot of money spent if it goes through. Again, I've stated during my, as a council member, feasibility is good. And I think the public, I think HDR needs to start advising the public to give them the notice. This project is bigger than huge. They're talking a 24-foot borehole. You're not gonna see nothing above ground, that's exactly right. They're gonna bore a hole slightly smaller than the one was bored into Yucca Mountain. Then from the top of the mountain down to where they're drilling in the borehole 2, 24-foot hole underground down to wherever the turbines are gonna be 900 feet below the surface. So they're gonna be maintenance on those turbines, so they're gonna have an access road underground from who knows where to take equipment in there, huge equipment. The problem with all that is they bore the holes, it's supposed to last 100 years, if it doesn't last 100 years, you have big columns of nothing. Down at Yucca Mountain and various other places, different agencies are looking to store stuff in these underground caverns. Again, a lot of stuff can happen in 100 years. A lot of stuff can happen in 50 years. We may all be on nuclear energy by then. So HDR needs to start telling the public the size of this project. When I say size, the size of the boring holes. Luigi informed me a lot. I got a lot of information out of him. It was good information. But again, going up Duck Creek, where they're going to bore that hole, they're not going to be going on Jeep trails. I've been where it's going to go. There's going to be some drastic changes, and I don't know how they're going to bore downhill. It's like a pencil sharpener. Where's the spoils going to go? So please encourage HDR to give everybody the whole information on this underground project. You won't see nothing, but there's a 24-foot in diameter borehole. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'm disappointed in all you folks. This is just a request for an easement to use a road, which they're paying $700 a day. I can tell you of a crossing, Central Ely. There was no payment. There was no application. Just depended on who you are. The selective enforcement is killing this community. All these people are doing is a study. We need to progress in this community. And the fact that you're not allowing them a simple request, an easement to go across that track, is an insult. We don't know where it's going to go. They don't know where it's going to go. But we have to move forward. I find it interesting that the only time most of you agree with me is when it favors the open meeting law in your favor to kill a project. Never worried about me saying anything in the past. Well, I'm concerned about this community. I'm concerned about being pro-business, and you guys aren't. Yeah, you might be concerned about a 25-foot borehole. I don't know if that's going to be a fact.